for me, something can happen when I meditate a lot is I can kind of lose touch with a lot of things outside of the moment. And so I just have to kind of bring myself here. Sometime last fall, I literally turned my life, if you will, over to universal intelligence and to God or to my higher power, or whatever you want to call it. I just said, that's enough. But I felt called, like it was, and I've had this call for a long, long time, and I've resisted. I caution you, if you feel called to do something, don't resist, because you can get whacked. Like the universe has its way of pushing us into the line. So I didn't really plan to do this. I've been reasonably uncomfortable at the front of the room over this last few months, but what's happening is what's evolving is we're building a community. I think that most of the people that are tuning in are people who are interested in consciousness or connection with whatever that is that I just talked about. So that's what we're doing. Is we're playing with the whole idea of what is consciousness? How do I connect with consciousness? When am I not? When am I living in an unconscious way? What does unconscious look like? So that seems to be what we're doing. Lately, I've been listening to Mooji quite a bit, and he talks about the I am, and for most of us, I am is usually followed by another word. I am a man, or I am a woman, or I am an Albertan, or I am a Canadian, or I am broke, or I am unemployed, or I am, but we're actually not any of those things. The consciousness is the I am that's behind all of those things. Would you guys agree that normally I am is followed by a, because nobody runs around and just says I am. But the truth is that the consciousness that we all want to connect to is the I am behind the descriptions that we have for ourselves. Somebody's husband, or I am somebody's wife, or I am somebody's son, or somebody's father. It's called consciousness. It can be called a lot of things. It can be called infinite intelligence. It can be called the field, the quantum field, many things that are beyond the traditional. I am an engineer. Is there any engineers? But we do. I am a teacher, and which is different than I have. Because we never say I am a sore throat, but we might say I have a sore throat, or we talk about ourselves like my body's getting older, as if it's something quite separate from us. The questions we're often asking ourselves is, what am I doing? Where am I going? Rarely spend much time on who am I, and so part of our exploration, our adventure is getting to who are you. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but there's a global drama going on, and ego loves drama, right? It loves things to be, shit going on. Some people's ego would, if I make too much fun of this drama that's going on, some people's ego would say, how dare he make fun? This is a very serious thing. But it is drama. And it really has nothing to do with anybody in this moment. If we're really here in this moment, when we go into meditation and we're just in this space, there's nothing, this is it, of the moment. That's where freedom is. There's a lot of, I would call it restriction in the drama. Oh my God, what's going to happen? what about the economy? All of, and we get into it, and we lay awake at night and think about it, and all of that. That doesn't happen probably to any of you guys, but it might. So it's just great that you're all here, and I'm honored that I get to do this. The one thing about meditation, there seems to be many ways to awareness, or to consciousness, or to that space that we want to get to, where past the mind. And but one of the constants in that is meditation. When we practice on a regular basis, there's lots of cool things that happen. One is we get to watch our minds, and we're like this being that's watching the mind, and we're saying, wow, look at that. And from that comes the realization often that we're not our minds, that our minds are like, any more than I could say that I am my hand. This is a tool, and I have a hand, and I have a mind, but I'm not my mind, and I'm not my hand. I have a body, I'm not my body, but I have a body. And so it's the same thing with the mind. When we sit and meditate, which we could do right now if you guys want to close your eyes, and just be nice to it, remember that it's a servant, it's a tool, its job is to look after us to a certain degree. Mind likes to take care of the practical, but it also has a way of staying in control by creating drama, so that we kind of believe that we need it. To surrender the mind, for many of us, is a difficult task, because we're convinced that we would be in such trouble without it. And yet, when we do surrender the mind, something else takes over, something else, the being behind the mind, that's always been there and always will be there, guides us in each moment. So as we sit tonight for a few minutes, watch the mind as it kind of does what it does. Sometimes if it's really got a lot going on, you can just say to it that it's safe. You can say, we're okay. We just need 10 minutes. And it will relax. One of the beautiful highways into the moment is our breath. We use our breath to be here now. So I'm just going to ask you guys to come back really slowly, to actually see if we can be here and almost stay in this state. We can be with each other, but stay as close to the meditative state as possible for as long as we can. Imagine that we're in a completely safe environment and that there's nothing needed from anybody for the next hour. So when we meditate in the morning and we drop into that space of emptiness a bit, and then we're finished and the mind comes back in and kind of takes over to run the day. Being aware of that can help us to be in a place of actually staying in that space of conscious connection that can happen in meditation. And but many of us are not aware of that. We're like, okay, that was meditation, this is my life. And we jump up and get into the day, and often our day has struggle. I'm late, traffic's bad, not prepared for work, I've got 16 million things to do, and the mind starts to roll, and with all the tasks and worries of the day. And we become who we think we are. And often we become, we go into our jobs, whether it's as a parent or in a relationship or at work, and we have a tendency to own those like that's who we are. We identify with it. We become a school teacher, and as opposed to this conscious being who does school teaching, or who comes to that with love, and I'm imagining that all of us want to be able to function, but from a place of consciousness. And when we're in the mind, we're often looking for problems. The mind loves problems. Does anybody relate to that? Mm-hmm. And so, but I think it's possible to live outside of that. There's a method, really. There's a way to be, to watch the mind. When we watch it in meditation, does that happen for you guys? Where you actually can watch your mind, and you know that you are not your mind, and does that happen? No, not yet. Well, it's going to, and stick with it. And I watch my mind, and sometimes it's humorous. Sometimes I laugh at it. I'm like, holy shit, what are you thinking? And I treat it like it's another being. It's like I have sometimes it's a friggin' committee that live in there. And does anybody have a committee in their head? Mm-hmm. And so who's in the committee? There's, huh? That's right. Yeah, it's all the monkeys in the zoo, and they're like, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and they have lots of shoulds, right? We talked about shoulds last week, so if once we start to identify that we're not our minds, that the mind has, it kind of runs on its own, and you almost know that you're not your mind. Look at the drama that's happening around us right now, say with this global drama that we were just talking about, with a virus and all that. And the mind just latches onto it and says, well, this could happen or that could happen. So who's thinking all those thoughts? And we have a mind, but we're not our mind. And it takes I guess a while of self-exploration to see that we're not our mind. The self-examination, the becoming aware, self-awareness that we're not our mind. We're like, our mind is a tool, but it has been conditioned. And who conditioned our mind? Yeah. Yeah. So we were conditioned by our mums and our dads. And I like to think about my mom. My mom had a lot of fear. She really did. She was born in the 20s and lived through the 20s and the 30s, and they were poor, really poor, and she had a lot of fear, and she, I'm certain, didn't mean to, but it kind of infected us with that, and so when I was born, when we were all born, we were these little things, right? We didn't have fear. We weren't born with fear. Fear was injected into us, and we were. It was, talk about a virus, It had but the being that I came in as was, infinite. It was this infinite being, this little, totally connected to source or universal intelligence. Now, a little helpless at the moment, because we're in this new plane of reality, this human plane, but I had no fear, I had no judgment, I had no anger, I had no complaint. Well, maybe a little complaint, but it was just how I communicated, right? If I was hungry, I would cry, and if I was uncomfortable in some way, I would make some noise about it, and I got what I wanted, and so I learned how to manipulate and how to work as a child, and kids are pretty self-centered, right? And everything's about them, and but we grow up and we go into the world with the conditioning of our family and the conditioning of our community, and we believe that that's who we are. Like we believe that's who we are. We're Canadian, or we're Indian, and your culture would have had a whole different cultural input than you were born in. Were you born in India?
I was born there.
So a lot of different influences for sure, and so, but many of us, the common thread that ego has and the conditioning has is a threat of fear. That we're not going to get enough, we're going to lose something, so I don't know about you guys, but I have not been able to reprogram that. And I spent a lot of time, like 40 some years, because I started in my 20s, trying to change the way I was conditioned. Has anybody here tried to change their conditioning? Everybody. And what I've discovered is that I can't. I'm totally unable to fundamentally change my conditioning. But what I can do is plug into a new reality. And the new reality is in this moment. The new reality is when I'm really here, and I've learned to watch my mind, so I see that it's mostly full of shit. This is the only time I get to tell you they're all full of shit. But we're all kind of full of the crazy thoughts, right? Does anybody relate to crazy thinking? Yeah, and it's like, and it runs all by itself. It's like, holy shit, you know. So the only thing that I think that we have to give each other, and why I see us creating a community to do that, is the possibility that if we work at it and seek it, and some of us actually are really drawn to it. I mean, it's not just like we woke up one day and said, well, I've got to find another way to live. But there's almost a pull to back to source, to the connection of, and I don't know how else to describe it, whether we call it infinite intelligence, we call it, you know, love, light, God, whatever we want to call it. But there's some of us have just got this pull, and I felt like I had the pull even in my teens. You know, I knew there was something missing in the way that life was presented to me, and I just didn't fit in to the model that they were selling. And they didn't even know they were selling a model. They thought that's what it was. You know, would you agree that, you know, the people that conditioned us believed what they were saying, or they at least didn't know that they didn't know, and they were, this is the best they had, and we were supposed to toe the line, and I didn't very well, and so, you know, I was always a bit of a rebel, and got in a lot of trouble actually, and with society, because I didn't fit into it. Does anybody ever feel like they didn't fit into society? So we, you know, we're looking at how do we be here and not be always restless, or be here and not always be kind of pissed off, you know, or be here and not be sad all the time, or feel like something's missing. How can, and that was the big thing for me. And I have a philosophy. I don't have, you know, although I don't really want to sell any kind of philosophy, but I have this idea that we really are like spiritual beings, that we really are, and somehow we got disconnected. You know, we're having a human experience, and we somehow, you know, at 3 or 4 years old, we got disconnected. Something woke us up, and we're like, holy shit, this is not what I thought. Who are these people? and this is not a safe place. And that's, for me, that's my story, that I woke up and recognized that it wasn't a safe place. That there was something, you know, that in my family of origin, that wasn't, you know, for this little guy, I was number 4 out of 5, eh? So by the time my mom got to 4, I think she kind of lost interest. Just saying, you know, so, you know, I think maybe there's tons and tons and millions of people that were brought up in these amazing homes that seem to have life figured out, and they're working at their jobs, and they've got their retirement all paid for, but I think there has to be more. And so that's begun my search, and you know, years of reading and going to India and going to Peru and doing, you know, finding the teachers and practicing yoga and you know, learning about tantra, doing all the, you know, the stuff that you could, where you would think. I mean, I spent years in the sweat lodge, you know, and imagining that somehow, is that you ringing? That somehow I would find that thing that was missing, and I realized recently, and we're going to talk about this in a second, that I never could find it outside of me. All the places I went looking for it, and I can't. There isn't actually anything to find. Does that make sense? There isn't anything to find. What I realized is that if I stopped running the show, that that intelligence would come in, that I had to just surrender. That was the deal. And how I stay connected is through my meditation, through service, but I just had to surrender. Say, look, okay. And wow, so not a good set of morals didn't seem to work for me, or a real, like a strong teaching, like I'm not a part of any kind of a religion. I read something, I posted something today that, did you know that Jesus was not a Christian? Yeah. And Buddha was not a Buddhist? And Muhammad was not a Muslim? These were spiritual teachers. They were, that we created these belief systems around, but we're all, have the possibility of being a Buddha, or having a Christ consciousness, or being vibrating at the vibration that Muhammad vibrated at, so anyway, I think we can all have that connection, and those people had that connection. I think that it's happening more today than ever. There's more people interested in making their own connection. For eons, we were taught that you couldn't actually connect unless you went through the priest, or you went through some religion, and we didn't have the access that we have now. And that's, in my opinion. So, anybody got any crazy mind stories? Anywhere where we're attached to anything, or anything coming up? Any experience of oneness that's happening, or
on a daily basis, I catch my brain going squirrely, and that's just separate myself from it and kind of ground myself. And there's a lot of times when I just laugh at the ridiculous thoughts that are going through my head. Because I'll fight with people that I'm not even in the room with them, having arguments with people that have never even happened, probably never will happen, planning all kinds of stuff, thinking just full of fear most of the time, right? Afraid that something's going to happen. I'm going to have to deal with a situation that's coming up that hasn't occurred yet. Every day. Yeah. The other night, right before I went to bed, I decided to stop and meditate for a while. I could feel myself getting all tense over something. I don't know what it was. There was probably about 10 different thoughts racing through my mind in about a 10-minute period. And finally just gave my head a shake. I thought I was meditating, but really my brain was taking control and stressing me out. And then finally, after about 10 minutes, I gave my head a shake and laughed at myself, because it's completely ridiculous how my brain can take over and cause me so much stress and trouble unnecessarily, just for things that I imagine. Yeah.
Right on. Did James show up?
Not yet. Late James is there.
Huh?
Late James is there.
Is he? Hey, late James. Well, isn't that crazy? The beautiful thing is when you can see it, and then that's the beginning of consciousness. It's like, oh, and then you can just let it go. And my experience is that the more I let it go, the less power it has. The more I ask the moment, or God, or whatever it is, however we want to interpret this power, this essence, this isness, into this moment, the fear or the drama loses its power, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So I found like I've been doing these meditations and things for the past year and a half or so. And I spend a lot more time in a serene, kind of peaceful state of mind, because I'm just quicker to identify as same old thoughts that always drive me up the wall. Right? So I can detach myself from it so much quicker now.
Yeah.
A lot more time.
Ego wants to defend its position too. Like say, hey, what are you doing? You can't, you need me. Leslie, tell us a story about something like that. What's happening?
Not much happening in my mind right now. I have to think on
All right. Well, anybody got anything that's going on in that where they can see that they're attached to an idea or to an identity, SJ?
So today I was in bed this afternoon and I could see myself, my self-destruction of just allowing the laziness to take control again. It's been a while since I even allowed it to happen. But I was just sitting there, I could actually just see it happening within me, just ignoring my gut, ignoring my higher conscious, and just allowing that laziness to say, it's okay, don't worry about it. You don't have to go to meditation class, you don't have to go to a meeting, just stay at home and don't do nothing. But then, I'm just grateful that, the God is around to kick my butt and get me going again. Wake me up and say, get up, go, go, go. And then once I got out and I was on the bus, that energetic strength that I had last week was back, and I was like, wow, I almost lost it. So I was just kind of grateful to be aware, but also grateful for the support of the light around me to keep me going on this track, so I'm never alone and not ever going to be alone. So yeah, that's my one experience today.
Do you find that there's almost like a catch-22 in this whole thing? There's this idea that we want to have I like to call it radical acceptance of who we are in each moment. And yet there's also this idea that we want to not fall into the pit of fear or shame or guilt, or and when we do kind of go into it, to just accept that we've been there, but not to struggle too much. It's a bit of a because when we truly, I think, accept ourselves in the moment, then it shifts. We can use acceptance as a tool to shift us out of, oh look, I'm feeling really lazy. I'm feeling, and often underneath lazy is fear, isn't it? Yeah. For me, there's sometimes underneath my not getting something done, or not moving forward, or not is fear, and again, that's my mind, my ego, telling me a story about that that brings up fear, and yeah. Anybody have anything we can? Doug, how's it going?
Good, David. Hey, you made me think a lot about things. My vibration changes a lot. I was doing really good. I was meditating a lot. I was feeling really, really good. Because prior to me meditating, I was depressed, down, anxious, miserable. But the last year, I've come a long way.
Yes.
Then I had to come to Calgary and find a job, and it was really draining on me. And then without a job, you don't feel the purpose.
Who's you?
Yeah, these people that keep talking to me in my head.
Okay.
It's like when my vibration goes down,
Yes.
these negative people start talking to me about, you gotta get a job, what's wrong with you, man? And then, so I just try to keep positive. But today I got a call for a job. So, right before I came here. And so I'm visualizing that it's going to be all okay. But the first thing that happens, I start thinking, well, what if I can't keep my vibration high in the job? But I think I can. Meditating is so important. And you just can't slack off.
So,
be consistent.
So the idea that we're meditating to get something is it?
I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, like
It's just to be.
yes.
Just to be loved, man. Just to be feeling in love with life, loving myself, loving everything. That's where I want to be. And that's where I am.
Yeah. Because it's funny. Has anybody ever had an amazing job but it still didn't fill us up? you know, yes, or been with an amazing partner, but still it didn't, you know, it didn't fill us up. It didn't, you know, we still had that discontent, or we still had that, you know, that crazy mind telling us that everything wasn't okay, and because that's what's there. And for a long time, I've imagined that awakening, or enlightenment, if you will, was something quite mystical. Right? It was like this, you know, I associated it with living it on a mountaintop somewhere, and what I see that's happening is that we become aware of our thoughts, and that we're not our thoughts. We become aware that we're not our jobs, that we're not somebody's mom or somebody's dad. You know, those are just things that we do or have. And we start to see ourselves as consciousness, as in our beingness, as opposed to our doingness. And I'm saying this, you guys tell me if it's true or not. I believe we're all really attached, and ego has us attached to our story. You know, I'm a fireman. You know, I'm a victimized Albertan. It's a story, and the more we go into it, the less present that we are, the less joyful that we are, the less loving I think that we are. And so awakening is really discovering that we're in a story. And this is not, people actually don't want to wake up, for the most part. I mean, ego doesn't want us to wake up. I was at a roundup this weekend at the 12-step thing, and there was a guy there, and he said that this fella said to him, "Marty, you're asleep, dreaming you're awake." And he was like, "What?" He said, "You're asleep, dreaming you're awake." And that was, you know, he said it about 4 times this weekend. You're asleep, dreaming you're awake. And even if that triggers us to start asking the question, am I awake or am I asleep? And we start to see that the symptoms of being asleep are our identity to our situations. Our fear of losing stuff, our anger for not getting our way. That's all in the realm of ego. And the idea of being awake is that we recognize that all of that is not us. That we are, you know, conscious beings, and that we have the possibility to in the moment live in our full potential. And I don't know about you guys, but my conscious idea of myself, my unconscious idea about myself is I'm not good enough, right? I'm not smart enough. I'm not a very good businessman. You know, I'm dishonest. I'm, you know, not qualified to be in a relationship. Those are the, you know, the list goes on. But those are my unconscious ideas about me. And when I'm really present, none of that's there. None of it. It's like, wow, I'm having, you know, this bliss of the moment. And so that's what I'm seeing us doing, like literally this year with our crew, is helping each other to wake up. And watching where we drop into telling story about our lives, oh, poor me, I got this, I got that, or whatever, whatever the problem is. I mean, if something's going on, like James had his car stolen, I mean, that's just a fact. It's just a fact. Oh, okay. But what does the mind want to do with it? The mind wants to make up a whole bunch of stories around it, why he deserved to have his car stolen and how he set that up, or all kinds of stories. Does your mind do that? If you're...
Makes you a victim. Victim.
Oh, for sure. Because that's what it believes that you are. It wants to, kind of, that's what from our ego place, from our unconscious conditioning place, But if we're living in this moment, our potential to be free and to show up in at whatever we do is enhanced, like, well, I don't know, certainly more than 10x. But right?
The best version of yourself.
Well, yes, but my experience is that I can't do that from my thoughts. I cannot make up enough. I can't put myself in that place. I can allow myself to be in that place by surrendering to the moment. And being love, and being there with whoever I'm there with, and consciously watching. And the more I watch, the more I see how attached I am to being a certain way, or defending myself, or wanting to be liked. Is anybody ever plagued with wanting to be liked? Yeah. Don't we all? We all fall into that at different times. Like, oh gosh, I just, and so we're careful. We actually don't even tell the truth. So we compromise, and then later we resent. I have a situation. I did that this year. I did it this year. I did. I was house sitting for a friend, and I compromised. I didn't really want to do it. I didn't really want to do it, and I did it. I said yes. I'll come and stay, and the truth is I didn't want to stay at their house. I didn't, and I just ignored that. And I learned a huge lesson this year about that particular thing, and so I would go there regularly to look the house over and stuff. But I hardly stayed there, and the house got broken into. Yeah, and then I recognized that my not being 100%, really stopping, really watching what was going on and telling my truth, which I didn't do, put me in a position of where I was out of integrity, and so I wasn't being my best self. I was out of integrity, and I have to clean that up, But the dishonesty happened when I didn't say no. And then, can anybody relate to that? It's just like, anyway, yes.
I guess I get confused so if you're presented with an opportunity like that where someone needs or is asked for your help, but it's not something that you want to do, and I guess sometimes I feel like, well, if the universe presents me with an opportunity where someone's asking for my help, I should help. But if I don't want to do it, am I just resisting against what the universe is placing in front of me? Or do I need to listen to my intuition, which is telling me this is not something I want, not something I can't do, something I don't want to do?
Well, I think that that's a really great question, and I mean, you and I've talk about that living in our, our conscious contact or our intuition, and we, might sometimes miss the mark because we didn't listen well. I can think of and for me personally, when I don't listen, the price is usually much greater than it used to be. It's like, this was one, I knew it. Like I knew it. When I look back on it now, I knew exactly the moment when it was clear that I should have just said, no, you know what, this is not for me. And not like they weren't in need. It wasn't like, do you know what I mean? They just, and they're nice folks, and I wanted to help out, and I wanted them to like me, and I wanted them, and it was, I saw that I compromised, and what a great lesson for me, but also as a result, though, because I really wasn't there as much as I should have been or could have been or said I was going to be, so I find myself in a position where I have to make an amend, but I learned again. It seems like the lessons never stop. Anybody relate to that? It's like I can tend to beat myself up later and say, oh gosh, look at your age. You're still doing these things. You're still not telling your truth. But can anybody relate to that? Yeah, yeah. But the other side of the thing is that sometimes we isolate ourselves so that we're not in those positions. I mean, the one thing I'm grateful for is that I'm not doing that. I mean, I'm out in the world and I'm making mistakes or I'm not listening to my intuition, or I'm, fucking things up, but I am in the game, so watch sometimes, because fear will take us out of the game, because we don't want to, we don't want to play in the stream, and that's ego too. That's the, I think that if we're living in the moment, if we're living in love, if we're meditating, we soon are active in service. We're doing things in the community. We're doing, I think that, it doesn't have to be that way, but I think that we are more in the game. And does anybody feel like they could be more in the game of life, that they're holding back? And yeah, so that's also one of the things that I think we're doing here is we're creating it. What's being created is a community where we can do things together. We got this thing coming up on the 21st. I'm so far out on a limb on this thing that I have no idea, and yet we're doing it, right? But watch my ego saying, "You're crazy," Gosh, no, we're not even going to be able to have gatherings by then. Everybody's going to be locked down in their house. That's all kinds of shit that goes on in there. I'm like, shut up. And without being mean to it, because I also know that I know this may sound funny, but it's like a child. And we could call it my inner child, but it's like a child. That my ego is like this adolescent who's has been giving a lot of power, and a reasonably intelligent adolescent that doesn't want to let go. So I don't beat it up. See bad ego. I recognize that it comes from fear. That it's okay. And I talk to it. I just say, hey, relax, it's okay. We're going to be fine. We're here now. This is where we are right now. But creating a community of we get together once a month and have a potluck at the house, which I enjoy. Which, by the way, we haven't talked about much, but it's next Sunday. For those of you that are in town next Sunday, we're going to have a potluck at my place. We try to do it once a month. And then the Saturday after that, we have our one-day event. Who's coming to the one-day event? Awesome. Yes, you are. Yes. And yes. So we're doing, I think there's many ways to awaken. To see, to awaken to consciousness, or to awaken to unconsciousness, to awaken, to get to a higher state, if you will. And so we're going to do that day. We're the most awakening thing that we're going to do all day is dance. Just kidding, but we are going to dance. And just, who likes dance? Dance? You like dance? Well, no. This is a different kind of dance. But it will require some vulnerability, because we're going to dance. We're going to do ecstatic dance, and which is fun. We're actually going to dance without thought. We're going to, the ecstatic dance part, which will be at the end of the day, is about an hour and a half of dance where somewhere in the dance, you'll drop into that empty space, into that nothingness, into the stillness, if we're really lucky, But have you ever danced, where you're dancing by yourself? There might be a crowd, but we're all dancing, and your mind is thinking, how do I look, and geez, and judging ourselves and judging others and all that kind of stuff. Well, we dance together long enough that we kind of get past that, into nothingness. Are you going to dance with us, Leslie?
Oh,
yeah. And we're also going to chant. We're going to chant, and we're going to do some. We may do a little kirtan with our chanting, and we have a friend coming in. So Marie Claire is leading the ecstatic dance, and then Jeremy, who has the Dharma Center here in Calgary, a new kind of a yoga studio / meeting space in Kensington, which is really cool space. Jeremy's going to come and going to lead. We're going to chant. So chanting is also a way to get out of our heads. Have you ever chanted?
I was just actually doing a new one that I just started today.
Nice.
From Sanatan Kaur. I don't know if you've heard of her. Satnarayan Vaheguru Hari Narayan Satnam. So it's kind of deepening my connection with my soul, and then establishing with the divine, and just building on that.
Yes.
So to strengthen it and to let it grow more and more, and feel more comfortable with myself and everything that's going on within around me.
Mm-hmm. So I've been chanting and singing kirtan for years, and I remember when I first started, I didn't know the words, and now even what you just said, I know, I know the words, and it's great. So we're going to chant, and chanting is a way to get out of our minds. Does anybody like to get out of their mind? Yes. And you remember what we used to do to get out of our mind? Drugs. Yes. Yeah. You're pretty quick with that. And you guys never did that. Yes. Yeah. Anyway, but actually it worked, right? There was a time when it worked, and my first exploration into finding my own spirituality was drugs and alcohol, and that was my vehicle for quite a while. It stopped working though, and then it became it was no longer lifting me up. It kind of would sink. It sank the ship. But so we're going to chant, we're going to dance, we're going to do breath work. Who here's done breath work? Yes, yeah. So we're like this breath work is like rebirthing. We're actually, we need to have bring your yoga mats. We're going to lay on the floor and bring a blanket if you like, or sarong, or And so we're going to, we'll do probably an hour or so of breath work. And breath work can take us into the, another space. Actually, when we breathe, and Joe Dispenza's been doing a lot of work with that. Anybody heard of Joe Dispenza? Joe's been doing lots of work with breath, and it releases, it can actually release natural DMT in the brain. The brain produces DMT, and like we have our own, it's natural. And so when we do breath work, we have an experience that's mystical. We can have like a mystical experience in breath work. And we can have actually mystical in chanting as well, and in dance. So, and we're going to, Trevor, who's going to do the breath work is Giselle and Dinard. Dinard? Yes, and they're amazing. And so, by the way, the reason that we can do this for like the money that we're doing it for is that most of these guys are coming volunteer. They're coming in to create this, help us create the community, and we're going to pay them something, but it's not, what the day costs. Most of them would charge individually for, if you went to do breath work, it would be, or more, yeah, and then we're going to do Trevor and Mira. Thank you. Are going to lead us in Enlightenment Intensive. And the Enlightenment Intensive is it really is asking the question, and the question's called a koan. It's a Zen koan, which is like a question like, tell me who you are. That may be the question. And we'll do a couple of rounds. But I did with Trevor last fall, I did 3 days of 16 hours a day of tell me who you are. And it's amazing because the mind eventually lets go. It just, because it's done saying all the things we think we are. And it gets actually done pretty quickly. For me it did. And I got to this place of absolute stillness, just like, my God, no pun intended, but yes, it was just this space of nothingness and of quiet, and everything changed, the texture in the room, and as I went out into the moon. It's full moon tonight, isn't it? Yes, and so that can happen in the Enlightenment Intensive. And the truth is, we were together the other night, Trevor and I and Dinard, and we were planning the day, and somebody could pop in just the two. We're going to do 2 dyads, and you've done a long. Did you do 7 day?
I've done 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Wow.
Yes. I highly recommend it.
Yes. 2 weeks is like not for the faint of heart.
2 weeks of what?
Of tell me who you are. Yeah, and it's just the body. First time I did it, and this is ego again. The body resisted. Ego will say, "What It might say on the way home tonight, "What are you doing with those people?" And who is that guy? And I mean, ego talks to us like that. This is bullshit. And does it? Do you guys hear him talk like that sometimes? Just go. Forget about this stuff. Stay home, watch TV. So, but 2 weeks. You did more than that though too. Did you do that twice?
Yeah. And 1 week for you, 3 days.
Yeah. So you love that.
I'm in love with the Enlightenment.
Yeah. But you're not in love with the Enlightenment Intensive. You're in love with what happened.
In love.
Yeah, you're just in love. That's right. Who was it the other day? It might have been Muji talking about meditation, and he said, so you meditate for 20 years. Why do you meditate for 20 years? So you can become a better meditator? No. So you can have freedom.
It's that call you're talking about. That pull. It's a call.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you've got it. Leslie and I talked the other day, and I had tears because it's so, for me, so beautiful to find somebody who recognizes the call and has the call and sees it. We see it in each other, and it's like, wow, it's the work that you've done is amazing, and so it's going to be great to have you in the room, and because it's like you've got a hockey team, and you're for the first time in 20 years you're in the playoffs, and 2 or 3 of the guys on the team have actually won Stanley Cups, right? And you want to have those guys on the team. They've been to the end, and they can. So having Leslie with us, and some of the people that are going to be with us on that day that have experienced, true seeing, it's a real gift. Just saying, and so we're going to travel that road together. This is an adventure. I hope you're all up for an adventure. Yeah, Jason, how you doing? Pretty good. I am. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've been, Jason and I have been swimming in the same stream for, a number of years, and it's just great to have you here. You're going to come to that one on the 21st, aren't you?
That's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to try to drag along a couple of newbies too, so that should be interesting.
Nice. Yeah. That's great. So I don't know if I've told you all, but I want to be clear about, because somebody said to me the other day, well, I didn't know that, but we're going to give up our phones. Oh, did you say, oh, fuck? I know, it's like, oh, you're kidding. I'm going to give up my phone? Isn't that, can you imagine having a day where we just drop out of, we're going to build a safe container, and where we can all, really disappear into a day of love, a day of community, and be with each other for the whole day. So we'll have an emergency number, in case the kids can't find the peanut butter and they want to, Mom, or whatever. But we will have an emergency number, and what did we do before phones, eh? Before cell phones? What? A lot, yes. But and maybe we're just doing this for me, because I'm the guy, I have a tough time with the phone. Like the phone takes me out of the moment. If I'm sitting with you and looking at my phone, I'm not with you. And so, yeah. So we, on Saturday, we sat beside each other in that room, right? Yes. And so I knew that I remembered you, but and we had a nice, yes, yeah. He was great.
He was awesome.
Yeah, we went to a little workshop on Saturday at the Roundup, and it was great. So that's what we're doing. We're building community, an awakening community, and we're part of it is that we kind of say this is a meditation class, but it's not. It is, but it's around talking about consciousness and exploring consciousness, and so when we come together on Monday nights, if you have thoughts through the week that are like, how do I get past this, or how to, what do I do with this fear, or this, bring it, and we can talk about it, and yeah, I think, just sharing this with you, that this is way better than therapy. Just saying. I know, it's a no-brainer for you, but I'm not suggesting that you fire your therapist. I'm just saying that I often think of therapy as rearranging the chairs on the Titanic. But we can jump past into a state of a, call it a spiritual connection. Even even using the word spiritual is creating an identity. So it isn't spiritual. What's spiritual? You know, what we're really talking about is being here now. You know, if we call it spiritual, we talked about, you know, many of the different faiths that really talk about being here now. Christ's talk on the Sermon on the Mount was all about being present, being here now. There's lots of things in all of the religions that say that we can only connect if we're present. You know, that's where the connection is. That's where the action is. So, and as we practice that and we learn to experience that and we understand what keeps us from that and we get better at that, we're lifted up. And as we're lifted up, all of the things that we thought were problems fall away. They just disappear. And because we're living in that connection, in that space of oneness. So practice is the way, without complaint though, or without making ourselves wrong, or without making ourselves bad or good. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And sometimes we can do that, and that can be ego that says, you know, you have to do this because you want to be a better whatever. But I think that the possibility though is freedom. And so, what time is it?
8:24.
Wow. 8:24.
8:24. I didn't check my watch yet.
I know. We lost an hour the other day. So,
How do you separate the need for survival? It's the survival thing. That tends to push me the need to survive, as opposed to the need to just be enlightened and just live and love. But the survival, I don't know what to say.
do you really want to know? So, my brother used to, years ago, this is so long ago, like I was a kid in my 20s, and I'd call him up, and I'd be freaked out about the rent, or the electrical bill, or whatever, survival. And my brother would say, "Did you have breakfast this morning?" I'd say, "Yeah." You know, say, "Did you have a place to sleep last night?" "Yeah." "Clothes clean?" "Yeah." And he'd just bring me into the moment. And just like, boom, okay, you know, because it was all in my head. It's all bullshit. And you know, this fear of an imaginary future that, you know, that just doesn't exist. And what I didn't get all these years is that my fear actually created my reality. And so it's imperative that I be here now, in acceptance in each moment. Because when I'm not, I'm living in fear, and my fear will eventually have me pushing a shopping cart. Yeah. So it isn't optional for me. Because it does create my reality. Sets in motion trains of circumstance. Fear sets in motion trains of circumstance. Anybody ever heard that? And that, you know, we
I heard somebody say, live like love is the only option.
again,
Like, live like the present moment is the only option.
well, it is the only option. But there, again, it what is love? Secondhand emotion?
No, to me it's a feeling that I get. I get it through meditation. But I know the same feeling because I felt feeling towards my children and
So love is a feeling?
I've been in love. I think it's more than just a feeling. I think it's that force. I think it's
Well, it is a force. Let's call it a force. It's a power. You know, I love to use love in this context when often in the 12-step world when I'm talking to sponsees or new guys and because I mean I don't sponsor guys, but when we're having the discussion about God. And in the 12-step world, it says that we turn our will and our lives over to a power greater than ourselves. And in the beginning, it says that. Well, I'll talk to guys and I'll say, well, because they'll say, well, I don't believe in God. God never nothing for me. I don't believe in God. Whatever, the tough guy stuff. And I'll say, well, do you believe in love? And everybody says, well, yeah. Love my dog, right? Love my kids. Not allowed to see them, but I love them. You know what I mean? And so my question then is always, do you think love is a power greater than you? And they all say, well, yeah. And so then that's the door opener into this relationship with a higher power. Is through love. I love that you know it's accepted as so when you talk about living in the moment or living in love, I see them as the same. And
people say God is love.
And I remember sitting in the basement of a United Church in Lakeview, and there was a little sign on the wall, and I was in a study group, and the little sign on the wall said, "God is love." And I was like, whoa, okay. So, yeah, you know, but when you're in this moment, there's no survival need. Right?
Oh, I felt it.
Yeah.
It's just hard to be consistent.
Yes. So that's the practice, though. And that's what we're doing together. You're right, it is sometimes. It's easy to drift off and to be, you know, on our own, isolating, full of fear, you know, sometimes full of terror. Yeah. Yeah. Doug said last week or 2 weeks ago, he said, I wish we had more Mondays. And I've been kind of thinking, and I'm not announcing this, but I'm thinking it would be nice to do a Thursday morning meditation. You know, kind of break the week up, and because just even if 3 or 4 of us came.
I just got a job.
Okay, like a daytime job?
Yeah.
Did you? Well, good for you. I think that's awesome. But having a job doesn't take away our fear of survival stuff. Something else will come up. You know, unless we want to live in the moment and be there in that way. But it's a great question, you know, and that's, you know, be here now, one day at a time, however we want to say it, and breathe, you know. When lots of times when I'm working with guys and they say this is happening, that's happening, and I'll just say, hey, breathe. Just breathe, and breath brings them into the moment. Breathe, pray, meditate. And they're like, okay. And then all that stuff just disappears. Whatever was going on, whatever she said, whatever they said, whatever the judge said, whatever, you know, it's gone in that moment because we're here. And that's where the power is. That's where the fun is. That's where the fun is. You know, anybody here ever jump out of an airplane?
Yes.
Yes. And were you present?
Yes.
Yes. You know, so That's why people jump out of the airplanes, by the way. They get to experience God in each moment. They jump like, oh my gosh. Or same with, most extreme sports bring us into the moment, right? And people do extreme sports sometimes so that they can, motorcycle racing or, triple black diamond runs on in the ski hill. And you've got to be there. And when we're there, we really feel that, like people call it spiritual skiing, yeah. So, but we can do that in meditation. We can do that for each other. We can, help each other. One of the things that we're going to come out of the day with on the 21st is we're going to do a kind of a set up a buddy system so we can get, and be in touch with each other and support the whole idea of awakening. I have a short book list too. I'm just throwing this out there for as an idea. One of my favorite authors is David Hawkins. Hawkins is Power versus Force, and that was his first book, and the last one was called Letting Go, and there's like 6 in between. Jason, you've read some of his stuff, Hawkins, and I love Eckhart Tolle. Eckhart's just, wow, so connected to the moment. His recipe for awakening is real. It works. Lately, this last little while, I've listened to a ton of Mooji. I've been watching him, and he's so he helps people to just drop into the space, and he doesn't have a real philosophy. It's all about just coming into the isness, into the being, into having a full seeing. And so if you Google Mooji and watch some of his YouTube videos, and all of that stuff lifts us up. And so then we can be together and kind of create a little tornado of awakening. So that's the project. James ever come?
Yep. He's there now. He's been there for about 10 minutes.
James, where were you?
He was out doing some sort of ceremony.
Oh, the moon ceremony. Yeah. Fun. So that's it. No, we don't have to smudge. We don't have to do anything, to be present. You know what I mean? We can do all that stuff. We don't have to do full moon ceremonies. We don't have to, just be here now.
What's a moon ceremony?
I don't know. I just know earlier he said he and his gal were going to be out baying at the moon, so I called it a ceremony. But
It's usually a letting go time.
yes, yeah. So we make shit up, right? And, don't we? Yeah, we do. Yeah, and I mean the whole world is full of ceremony, and it's all just stuff. Some ceremony brings us into the moment. Some ceremony helps us to get connected. Some ceremony is just in our heads. It's nothing, But but I think that the possibility of meditation, being in a community where we have like-minded people, and service helps us to be here now, and finding somebody that like a sponsor, like a teacher. Those are important things to have on the path to awakening. And people that are going to come, Trevor and Mira and Giselle and Dinar and Jeremy, and they're all amazing teachers in their modality. So there's going to be, that love-in. I'm calling it a day of love, a day of radical acceptance. And so imagine if you come on that Saturday, by the way, that it may be a bit challenging, you know, and challenging is good. So, well, any other thoughts? Anybody have anything else before we meditate and call it a day? For the people that are watching, you know, some of them, I'm grateful for this. Some of them, I get little e-transfers from some of the people that watch on the evening like this, and so thank you for that. It's I'd like to be able to do this kind of work full time, and you know, whether it's working one-on-one with people through the week, you know, and doing more evenings like this. You know, I'm not really a workshop facilitator, and this is, you know, I don't, the thing we're doing on the 21st, I don't even think of it as a workshop. It's like a community gathering. Oh, we got to bring food. We're going to do vegetarian. And so if you're coming, we're going to, you know, we're going to have food. Actually, Chris was supposed to be here tonight to talk to me about food. Anyway, maybe she'll be here in a bit. So, that's it. I just want to say thanks for those of you that do that, and a couple of things that I need. I need some help with some video editing and stuff like that. If anybody knows anybody that you know, that likes what we're doing, or is into consciousness, or into this kind of awakening work, I need some help with video editing and that kind of stuff. So I throw it out there, and I'm also going to need some help on that Saturday. That's it. So should we meditate for 10 minutes? And when we sit, imagine, you know, feel the group. Kind of, you know, bring yourself into the consciousness of the group, and just feel that we're here together. We're one mind, really. When we're past the ego, we are into one mind, and that's the possibility. Actually, that's what we're doing, and we can do it in our meditation, where we're, you know, that place that we're dropping into is the pool that we all drop into together. And so let's put some not energy, nothing into it, really, just awareness that's the possibility. And so if you're watching, love it if you sit with us for the next 10 minutes and just find a comfortable spot to sit and breathe. Remember that breath brings us into the moment. We focus for a second on the breath. We're here. As we drop in, know that we're not what we do for a living. We're not our bodies even. We're not our minds. We're not all the identities. We're not a man, we're not a woman. We are consciousness. We are love. Just tell your mind that it's okay to take a break. There's nowhere to be. This is it. Just be here. Just let our thoughts be. You find yourself in your thoughts, just let them be. Nothing to do. Just breathe and let them be. just come back when you're ready. Take your time. Remember, we can hold this state. Get there in the morning, you can hold it all day, you can keep it. Take it home with you. Wow. Thank you for tonight and for, I think caring about yourselves to be on this journey of awakening. And I think that, eventually the seeker disappears and we just become, the beer, no longer the seeker. And we just live in it. So, thanks. And if you're going to come to that thing on the 21st, it would be great to have you let me know one way or another. And I'd love it if you'd share the word a bit. We'd like to have maybe 40 or 50 people there for the whole day. There seems to be a lot of people that say they're coming, but I haven't heard from them. And some have. We've got people who've been sending me money and e-transferring and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, share the word and let's do this one together. So thanks for watching, you guys, and love you, and that's it. Love you lots.